Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to Roots Refuge Farm. I'm Jess, if you don't know that already. And today I'm opening this lovely box of seeds. And I'm going to chat with you guys a little bit while I do about some of the things I bought, as well as planning for the fall garden, because even though it was 100 degrees today, now is kind of the time to start thinking about that. So I bought these seeds from Botanical Interest. This is a big box of seeds. They were having a sale. I don't know that it's still going on, but I think it is. I have a link to them. I'll put it down below. They had a lot of seeds that were like $1.20 a pack, and I've always had good success with their seeds. So I ordered a few packs for fall, partially, and also some that I'll save for next year. So that's kind of the first thing that I wanted to make sure you guys knew. If you've been with me for very long, you've heard me repeat this 8 jillion times, because when I first started gardening and seed packages had a date on them, I thought it was an expiration date. Nobody told me otherwise, and I threw my seeds away at the end of the year, and they still haunt me. So that packed for 2022, the way this says that, there's a law that requires seed companies to disclose when a pack was made and sell it for that year only, and not sell older seeds. That doesn't mean that they're not good, and it doesn't mean they won't grow. And with that being the case, when you're coming into the end of the seed buying season, mid to late summer, it's the best time financially to buy seeds. Now, you don't have as many options because the really popular stuff is usually sold out at that point. And then seed companies start re-upping their seeds at the end of the year. So like by October or so, November, they'll start restocking, and the packages will say packed for 2023. Now's a really good time to buy stuff, and they'll still be good next year. I mean, don't store them in your car or anything like over the summer. That could be detrimental, but keep them in a cool, dry place. You can grow seeds for years. I'm still germinating seeds that are 7 or 8 years old without a problem. I think corn may be the exception. Like, it loses germination really fast, but even still, I've grown corn seeds that were at least a couple years old. So it is June now. Technically, we're not even into summer yet. However, it is time to be thinking about the fall garden. And this is one of those things that varies very greatly depending on where you live. So the first thing that you need to do if you are wanting to grow a second wave of stuff in the summer garden, if you're wanting to grow fall crops, if you're wanting to grow past your frost date, because there are things that you can grow even after it's frozen, you need to know when your first frost date is in the fall. So if you look up first frost date for your zip code, for the closest city to you, if you live rural like I do, just look for the closest city, and you're going to get a date sometime in the fall, which is the first day that on average your area freezes and drops below 32 Fahrenheit or 0 Celsius. And that's called the killing frost, and basically that's what puts an end to the summer garden. Write that down. Write down your first frost date. You really need to know your frost dates. It's more important than your zone. People will talk a lot about, oh, I'm in zone 7 or zone 5 or whatever it is. Your zone is just telling what the average low temperature is for your winter. That has nothing to do with growing annuals at all. In fact, I'm in zone 8. I was in zone 7B in Arkansas, but there are people in Oregon that are in zone 7 and 8. Their winters are about the same mildness, but their frost dates and their frost-free growing season is significantly shorter than mine is here. So it can be really different, and the only thing the zone is talking about is the average low temperature, which affects, of course, which things are going to be perennial and which things are going to die off over the winter because it got so cold. Now, with your first frost date in the fall, you write that down. Mine's like November 1st here. Now you just look up how many days until that date. For me, I am at 140 days until my first frost, estimated. Keep in mind, this is an estimate, so it's not going to be a hard and fast rule. It's not black and white. You know, the future doesn't call and tell us when the frost is going to come. This is just based off past records. But with that estimate, if you know about how many days you have, you can make an educated guess on what you have time left to grow. Now, for me, here in June, with 140 days left, 140 days is enough to grow pretty much anything that you would grow in like a summer food garden. So I could still plant tomatoes and peppers and even eggplants from started plants. I could plant all of that stuff today out in my garden and harvest it this fall. Now, it might struggle a little bit getting started here in the heat, and that's one of the things you have to be concerned about. But it's really good to know that if you've got that many days left, you can throw more seeds in the ground. And that kind of brings me to my first part of the fall garden, which is, for me, growing in a really hot place, because a lot of things do kind of peter out in the extreme heat. I can usually get another wave of cucumbers and squash and green beans and a lot of the things that are frost tender and aren't going to grow past the freeze, but I can get another wave of those in the fall. Usually that means direct sowing those things about the middle of August for me. And when I put those in the ground about the middle of August, I do have to be very mindful that I am watering them a lot because it is so hot. I want to make sure those seeds can germinate and thrive and not dry up. But do remember that the fall can be a much nicer time to grow stuff. It's easier to garden in the fall if you live in a really hot place. And also a lot of times pest pressure is different. So bugs have life cycles, and so if you deal really hard with pest pressure in the spring on squash bugs or borers or whatever it is, cucumber beetles, a lot of times if you try to plant those same things and grow them in the fall, you won't have nearly as much of a problem because those bugs have already cycled. They've already bred for the year, and they might not be so bad. There is another kind of fall gardening though. When I'm talking about the fall garden here where I live, I'm talking about both. I'm talking about one more wave of the cold tender things, and then also planting cold hardy varieties. So there are lots of things, specifically root vegetables and things in the brassica family that can withstand a freeze. In fact, there are some things that can go several degrees below freezing and be just fine. And then if you want to bring in maybe a little frost fabric or some sort of cover to protect them during colder nights, you can grow well into the fall and into the early winter depending on where you are. Now, inevitably, anytime I talk about this, somebody will come up and be like, well, I'm in Minnesota. Do you think that that would work for me? And the answer is no, I don't. I don't think that if you live in a place that gets like really sub-zero, truly like extreme freezes, from what I understand, of course, I never lived in one of those places because I would die, but from what I understand from the people that I have talked to that are growing in those places, if you are trying to grow through such a harsh winter, it's almost exclusively got to be indoors or in some sort of facility that was built to give heat and artificial light. Where I am, the ground doesn't even really freeze, ever. So that's a very different thing. And so for the fall garden, if you live in a really cold place, some of the stuff I'm talking about doesn't necessarily apply to those really cold places. If you live in a cold place and you have a short season and your first frost is going to come into September, you would want to be planting those second waves of things right now. And in fact, if you live in a place that is that mild, there's a very good chance that you're okay growing the cabbages and broccolis and carrots and all the things that I can't even hope to grow in my summer because it's too hot. You could probably grow those through your summer alongside your tomatoes. I remember that companion planting book coming out, Carrots Love Tomatoes, and I was like, they're not from here. Because in where I've lived my whole life, you cannot grow carrots and tomatoes very well at the same time because it's really hot. Carrots don't even germinate when it's really hot. So let's start opening this. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I'm doing in my garden this fall. Maybe give you some ideas. Now, I start my seeds in a greenhouse, and so when it's time to start these seeds, which is like July, that greenhouse is 130 degrees. Like there's no way I'm going to be starting seeds. Now, that's in the past. This year, we do have our greenhouse very vented. We put shade cloth on it. I'm going to try to start some seeds in that. But for all practical reasoning, you might have to start seeds in the house, in a basement, in a garage, under a grow light, because you're growing these plants that thrive in cooler temperatures. You can't really expect to direct sow them in the middle of the heat because they're just not going to do very well. That doesn't mean they won't always ever do well, but as a most of the time situation, they're likely not going to do well. What I would like to do this year is try to start some brassica seeds, some Brussels sprouts, kale, cabbage, broccoli around like maybe August 1st, and then hope to transplant those outside around October 1st when it's still going to be warm, but it's not going to be 100 degrees. And then once they're transplanted out, you know, they can get somewhat established so that when the freeze does come a month or so later, they will be acclimated to it. So that's my hope, and hopefully I can do that in my greenhouse, but I might have to do it in the house. Now, not everything I brought here is frost tender though. I got several packages of this Heirloom Beauty sunflowers. I'm planning on trying to plant these in my greenhouse to maybe rectify some of the soil issues I'm having in there. And also, these are just really beautiful. That's why I got those. Another thing that I bought, kind of because the seeds were cheap and it was something that I thought I really would like to try, that is this Utric blue wheat. I was also told that grass crops can be good for rectifying toxins in your soil. So I thought maybe doing some of this in a bed would be really cool. This is an edible wheat. However, they state on the information of this that it is kind of difficult to thresh it to get the wheat berries to actually grind and eat. So more likely I would be growing this for an ornamental purpose. It is stated that it's really great for flower arrangements and also is really good for weaving. So if you wanted to like make a basket or something. I don't know that I'll be doing that, but sometimes I just like the idea of things, you know? Like, I'm like, I would like to be a person that weaves baskets out of wheat. Probably not going to be this year, but I'm going to give it a try. I thought it was really pretty. I do actually want to grow some wheat, and I've been researching about growing my own wheat, like maybe on a larger scale. I was talking to a local friend who was telling me that it's actually a lot easier than what a lot of people think, so be kind of cool. So you'll notice that a lot of these seeds I bought multiple packages of the same thing. I'm growing a really large space. A lot of times I need multiple packages of the same thing to really fill out spaces. Plus they were a good deal, and so if I'm able to get some at a good deal and share them with people, like, I'm glad to do that. So these are trailing nasturtiums. So these do climb and kind of grow all over the place. Nasturtium is frost tender, so this is going to die at the killing frost, but it's pretty fast growing. It's something that really struggles when it gets extremely hot. So this would be a pretty cool thing to stick some more seeds in the ground and let it come up and then really take off as the heat starts to break. And nasturtium's awesome because all parts of the plant are edible, and edible flowers just really add something special to food. See, I don't even remember what all I ordered here. All right, so I got some Cracker Jack marigolds, and go ahead and stick some of these seeds in the ground now. I got some calendula. This is zeolites. Let's see, I got a couple of zeolites calendula. Calendula is medicinal. It's a really great plant for making skin salves, and it is also frost hardy. So if you want something that is going to maybe add some color and beauty to the garden and live after the freeze has come. It won't live through like a really hard freeze, but it can handle a mild frost. All right, so I also got some Alyssum, sweet Alyssum. I got two different varieties, a pastel blend as well as this one, which is shades of pink, Rosy O'Day. Alyssum is a part of the brassica family, so it's a relative of like kale and cabbage and cauliflower, and you can eat it. It's real peppery. It's kind of got a strong, like, pungent flavor. I can't say that I've eaten a lot of it other than to just show that you can, but it is another thing, being a brassica, that is frost hardy. I love Alyssum because it's got what's called partitioning roots, which means you can plant this as like a living ground cover under other plants. And partitioning roots means like if you have a plant that's got like a big root system, the Alyssum's roots just grow around that. So they don't actually compete with other plants. So it's a really good ground cover. It's a great pollinator plant. If you do put it in your garden, it's likely going to reseed and you're going to have it there forever. That's annoying to some people. I find that to be a great benefit because I like to have volunteers, because it's like my garden just keeps growing without my help. So I really like that. And so I'm going going to broadcast these, I will probably wait until the heat breaks a little bit. It does okay in the heat, but it does tend to die back a little bit. But this is something that I could get growing in the fall, and it'll actually stay whenever it starts cooling off, which is nice. Multiple herbs here. Parsley, that's frost hardy. That can live through a freeze. Pretty good freeze. Not like a Minnesota freeze, but like a pretty good Arkansas or South Carolina freeze. Which is to say, maybe like 20 degrees, negative, what is that, -7 Celsius. So yeah, parsley can live when it's pretty cold, and dill also. Dill is as cold hardy as parsley is. In fact, if you live in a really hot place, growing dill in the fall, over the winter, in the spring, may even produce more for you. And also dill, if you do get it going in the fall pretty well, a lot of times it will overwinter and still be there in the spring, kind of take off. Of course, then it goes to seed, which is not a bad thing because you can use dill bouquets for pickling and stuff, but it is the host plant of swallowtail butterflies, so that's kind of nice to have it in the garden in the spring. Next, cilantro. Cilantro is a really hard thing to grow in hot places because it goes straight to seed, and so I always grow cilantro in the fall. So that's something that I'm going to be starting and then moving out as soon as, you know, we're out of these 90 Fahrenheit, 32 Celsius plus degree days. Lettuce leaf basil, that is a summer herb. I just didn't have very much lettuce leaf, so I went ahead and grabbed that pack. I did get a couple of packages of watermelons. I have some watermelons going out in the garden. So I don't even know that I'll plant these this year. I might just stick these in the seed collection for next year. I got a Charleston Gray and a Crimson Sweet. Next, I have some Market Express white turnips. This is another thing to keep in mind if you are growing towards the end of the summer into the fall, early winter. The days are significantly shorter. So when a seed packet says that a variety is 30 to 40 days, that is generally assuming that you're growing during the most ideal conditions. The late fall is not always the most ideal conditions. So you can't always count on something coming to fruition as quickly as the seed packet says in the fall. Things are going to grow faster in the spring as the days are getting longer. Turnips are still pretty quick growing, and the cool thing about growing root vegetables in the fall is that as the days do get shorter, as the nights do get colder, as, you know, less sun is on these things every day, they aren't going to go to seed, and they typically store in the ground longer. So I will direct sow things like this with a last frost date of November 1st-ish. About mid-September. So I'm going to go about 6 weeks before my last frost date. And with that being the case, usually I have pretty good root growth by the time the freeze starts. And all of these things can withstand a good freeze. I would say down to maybe like 25 for sure, which is I think about -4 Celsius. And then I have had them withstand much colder with a little bit of cover. One year with root vegetables, turnips, rutabagas, I think there were some beets and radishes in there. We got down to like -5. I think it got down all the for a few nights, and then all the way down to -12 Fahrenheit, so something like -22 Celsius in Arkansas. Now, the things in the high tunnel obviously had a layer of protection. High tunnels are not heated. It definitely freezes in there. The tops died back on those, but then even after that, I was able to go harvest them all at the same time, pickle a bunch of them, cook a bunch of them. And so even though the tops died back, and though had I left them in the ground, the roots would have rotted over time because they had some damage, they were still usable. So growing this stuff and getting it started on the front end, if you start at 6 to 8 weeks before the frost, is really nice because your ground works like your root cellar to a certain degree. So I did get a few tomato varieties. Now, they didn't have a whole lot of tomatoes in stock, but I did get a few varieties. Some San Marzanos, some Oxheart, which is like a paste tomato also, and then a couple packs of Cherokee Purple, which is kind of like a standby favorite. Botanical Interest does mark their tomatoes, whether they're determinate or indeterminate, but they call them pole and bush for determinate. Determinate is bush, pole is indeterminate. And that's cool because a lot of seed companies don't tell you have to Google it, and that's kind of nice. They didn't have a lot of tomatoes to choose from. I'm not going to plant those this year, but I just figured it's always nice to have extra. Radish watermelon, that's another one that I'll direct sow, you know, 6 weeks before our last frost. I got some sunstripe summer squash just to have some more to succession sow. Now this says 50 days to harvest. I would probably give it 60 or so for the fall garden just to account for those shorter days. But that means that if I put that seed in the ground 60 days before my first frost date, estimated first frost date, there's a very good chance that I would get to harvest food off that. If I put it in the ground 80 days before, I would very definitely get to harvest food off of it. And that's worth putting the seeds in the ground for me. Oh, rutabagas. So I got a couple of packages of American purple top rutabagas. I love rutabagas. They're very similar to a turnip. And you know, like things like rutabagas, they're not necessarily the most romantic thing. I had never even really heard of rutabagas very much, except for the rabbit on Winnie the Pooh always talking about his rutabagas. I grew these a couple of years ago in a fall garden and peeled them, cubed them, boiled them, and then mashed them with sour cream and chives. And they are so good. Since then, I have been spreading the good news of rutabagas, and I will grow them in any early spring or late fall garden. Again, direct sown. Charles Dowding does a thing where he actually starts root vegetables like this, and he'll put 3 or 4 in a cell, and then he'll grow them clustered together like that. And they kind of just spread apart, and they grow a little bit maybe smaller roots. The main thing is that you wouldn't want to do that in poor soil. Like, you need to have good rich soil to really support growth that close together. But I usually just direct sow them because it's just easier. I did do that Charles Dowding thing once because if Charles Dowding does it, I want to try it. All right, a couple different radishes here. Rudolph radish, which is just like a plain red bulb. That's a 25-day variety. French breakfast, that's my favorite radish. They're super mild. Radishes are another one of those things that I didn't think I liked a whole lot, and I didn't see the point in growing them. But when I first got my first set of seeds, Jeremiah's Nana gave them to me, this whole like heirloom seed collection, and I was dying to start gardening, and it was like February, and so I googled it, like what can I grow in February, and it said radishes and kale, and so I grew like a whole garden bed of radishes and kale and sweet peas. I did like shelling peas, and I had this harvest full of radishes, like a big old bowl full of radishes, and then I was like, what do I do with these? Because the only place I had eaten radishes up until that point was like a few thin slices on a taco, or I'd maybe had like a few thin slices on a salad, but I did not know what to do with a bowl full of radishes. So I looked it up, and I'd seen about roasting them, and so you just quarter them, you put some oil or some lard or something like that, ghee, salt and pepper in like a 400-degree oven, and cook them until they're soft. Now, I've recently seen Elise Myers on Instagram roasted hers, and then she put them in the air fryer to finish them off and make them crispy. I haven't tried that yet because I haven't had any growing, but I'm definitely going to try it. Roasted radishes they're delicious. They're kind of potato-y. They do not taste like you would expect a radish to taste. Oh, I bought more radishes than I realized. Okay. I got another pack of French breakfast, and I also got this Easter egg blend, which is a multicolored blend of radish. Y'all, that's Honey, the heifer over there, rubbing against the fence. I got this Brightest Brilliant Rainbow Quinoa. I've actually not grown quinoa, but I know that the leaves are edible, and they're kind of flavored like spinach. And then once you get the actual seeds, you can use those for lots of uses. I've cooked quinoa multiple times from the store, but I've never grown it. And I thought that at the very least this would be beautiful to grow, so I grabbed 1 pack of that. I got some sugar pie pumpkins. That's just kind of like an old standby that I wanted to have the extra seeds of. Purple Beauty bell peppers. This is one that I really like. I've grown that before. Jimmy Nardello sweet pepper, also really like it, and have grown before. An Orange Sun bell pepper. Shishito peppers, which I got 3 packs of because I don't ever want to run out of these seeds. These say 60 to 75 days from transplanting. I think a lot of my pepper plants are gonna have to go away out of my high tunnel because of our soil issue up there. So I may try to go ahead and start some more of these because, man, I love shishito peppers. That shishito peppers blistered in a hot pan and then dipped in like a lemon or lime aioli is literally like one of my favorite foods of all. Not just out of the garden, but of all. It's so good. Some jalapenos and some serrano peppers. These are just really good staples. All of those, I was not planning on planting any this year. I might end up trying to start some. When you see a thing that says 60 to 75 days from transplant, it's usually assuming that the transplant is 6 to 8 weeks. So I don't really know if I started those from seed right now, if 140 days to my last frost would be enough. It would be cutting it pretty fine, but it might be worth the gamble. All right, I got some onion seeds, shallot seeds, and then Walla Walla onions. These are long day onions, and typically I think that I would need to start these like at the end of this year. I've actually never grown onions from seed. I've always just used sets, but for the sake of sustainability, I wanted to have those seeds and give it a try because obviously that would be the better way to do it. It would be cheaper. I got some red Burgundy Okra. A friend of mine was actually looking for some Burgundy Okra, so I ordered these and figured I'd shoot her a text and tell her I had them. Clemson Spineless, really tried and true green okra. That was kind of just for the sake of having seeds on hand. I have some other ones up front. I'll probably save seeds from those as well. Hearts of Gold Cantaloupe. That's a really good one. I have grown that before. I got a couple of those. Here's a couple of lettuces. I also got some of the bigger packs of lettuces. I got some Little Gem and Marvel of Four Seasons. I've grown both of these before. I really like both of them. Lettuce is something that I grow a lot of in the fall, over the winter in a soil bag, in my greenhouse or in the inverted tote. I have a video about doing that. You can do it anywhere. You can do it on an apartment patio or backyard or whatever. And lettuce is one of those things that growing organic lettuce at home can really save you a lot of money if you're buying that at the store, because you can grow, you know, those blister packs. One, I don't know if you're anything like me, but it's really hard to use all those sometimes. Like, you forget they're there and they go bad, and I don't really like that. I like being able to go pick the lettuce as I need it, so I can be sure that it's fresh and there's not any wasting, and that alone helps me save money. But even still, you know, if you're able to get a little pack of seeds like this for $1.20 on sale and sow all of these seeds in a little section of your bed and cover it to protect from frost, you're definitely going to get $1.20 worth of lettuce. Some homemade pickles cucumbers. See, that says 55 days, so that's something that I could sow late into the summer and be harvesting more cucumbers in the fall. Collards, very, very frost hardy. You can grow collards like straight through the winter if you live in a place that doesn't freeze terribly bad. And I've even seen where people grew kale and collards in places like Michigan and like northern Ohio, places that have significantly colder winters than I do, which that is like zone 5, 6. So those winters are getting quite a lot colder. I got a couple of carrot seed packages. These Tonga di Parigi, I know I'm saying that wrong. I'm butchering that because that is not English and I said it real southern. Really little bitty carrots. I thought these would be cool to grow in a green stalk, so that was my thinking on trying that. Danvers 126, that's like a good tried and true, and Cosmic Purple too. I've grown lots of Cosmic Purple carrots and they've always done well for me. I got some Napa Cabbage. I love fresh Napa Cabbage. Gosh, it tastes so good from the garden. Dazzling Blue Kale. Leeks, much like the onions, I'll start those seeds towards the end of this year and get them transplanted out early in the spring and grow them into the spring. Copenhagen Market Cabbage. Some Brussels sprouts. So these cabbages, Brussels sprouts, the Napa Cabbage, the kale, these are things I'm going to attempt to start from seed probably like very beginning of August. And if I can't get them going in my greenhouse, like if they seem to be struggling, I might have to set up a grow light like in my camper or something. I don't really have space in my house that I can protect them from cats and children. Oh, Romanesco Broccoli. This is such a cool plant. I know that's just a drawing, but if you've ever seen this before in real life, It's so neat. I mean, it's just unbelievably beautiful looking with the symmetry to it. This is probably, I think, one of the coolest plants. If you've ever seen this growing, it just feels impossible. I'm like, what creativity? Bellstar Broccoli. Again, going to try to start those from seed. You can also direct sow this stuff. All of those cabbages and brassicas, broccolis, all that stuff, if you do direct sow them, it's more of a gamble because, and I've done it successfully. I've had more success direct sowing those in like February and them just really getting a very slow start through the early, very cold months of the spring, and then kind of starting to take off when spring starts warming up, and then you get to harvest them before it's too hot. I've had more success with that than direct sowing in August because a lot of those things struggle with germination, at least if you're in a real hot place. But you can try direct sowing them. I've grown them from direct sown. I think just starting them is a little better if you have a place that you can. Bull's Blood Beet, that will be direct sown about 6 weeks before last frost. Royal Burgundy Bush Beans, this is a 55-day variety, so I could succession sow these for another 50 days, you know, another month and a half in my garden and still get a good harvest. And in my experience, I've gotten really good harvests of green beans like in October whenever I planted them that way. They just seem to not have as much pest pressure in the fall. So I got several things of green beans. The Burgundy, oh, I got a few of those. Tavera, which is like a real thin bush bean, and then Blue Lake, which is kind of a tried and true. Oh, they gave me a free package of seeds, of sunflower seeds. That's nice. Oh, here's some more radishes, black Spanish radishes. I got 2 packages of these Green Globe improved artichokes. I am going to sow these in my high tunnel a little bit later in the summer. So their suggestion on their website and package is to sow in the fall for a harvest the following spring. And that's what I'm going to try to do. Now, I am going to try to grow these in my high tunnel because I know that artichokes can really struggle in like extreme heat, but they do need it to be pretty warm. And so I'm hoping my high tunnel will help these be a perennial crop. So that's what I bought those packages for. And I also got some of these big packages. Like, look how huge these are. And these I bought just where it made sense because they were on sale too. And so the little ones were like $1 something and these were like $3 something. So it was significantly more seeds than just buying 2 of the little packs. I got a big package of arugula. I love arugula. It's not something I can grow through the summer here, but I do grow it through the fall. And the main place we use arugula is on top of pizzas that we make in our pizza oven, just mixed in with other salad greens or on top of burgers. So really like arugula. I'll probably fill up like a tier of one of my green stalks with this. I did get a big package of butter gold corn. This is a 63-day variety, and I'm going to go ahead and sow it here soon. I've got some places in the garden that I'm going to put that in. I got quite a few different packages. Some of these were labeled microgreens. I got like this Jazzy Mix, which is cress, cabbage, radish, mustard. So let me tell you something about these microgreens packages. So I got all of these, like each one of these this is 24 grams. I mean, it's multiple of the smaller seed packages in one. And they're marketing these for the use of microgreens, which is you're going to put lots and lots of seeds on some sort of medium in a tray and then cut them off as they sprout. Tons of nutrition, really great way to grow some food in your house. I love microgreens, they're so good. But if you have an opportunity to buy seed packs like this for a few dollars, and you're trying to have like, you know, some sense of preparedness where you have seeds that you could grow food from your family. These seeds this is cabbage and radish and mustard and cress. Like, there's not a special kind of seed for microgreens. So these, if you grew them spaced out, it would grow cabbage and radish and cress and mustard. They would grow full-size plants if you gave them space. This is a lot of seeds with a lot of food. So I got a few of the Jazzy Mix, cilantro microgreens. I just thought that would be amazing. I'm actually going to get these started soon because I can't grow cilantro in the heat. Having cilantro to use in all this summer food would be really cool. So I grabbed a few of those. But of course I could sow these in the winter whenever I could give them more space and get full-size plants. This is a basil blend for microgreens. Basil is my favorite microgreen. Basil is like one of my most favorite things, but this package is opal, dark opal basil and Genovese basil. So if you wanted to start a whole bunch of full-size basil plants, you could use this for that also. So I got like several of those because I was so excited to see basil in a bulk package. And then I got some baby greens mix. Oh, that's a big old thing of sweet basil. Red Russian kale. These are just a gourmet mesclun mix and a kale premier mix. So I could grow these as microgreens and get like a whole tray of microgreens, or I could separate these out and get bigger plants. So I spent about $100 on these seeds. I think it was maybe it was like 110 once it was all said and done. But that's a lot of seeds for $100. Truly, this is most of what I would need for my fall garden. Now, I'll dig into my seed collection and use some things that I already had also. But I could largely grow most of my fall garden and obviously some of my garden into next year with this purchase of seeds. So I hope that was informational. I thought that it would be fun to open these with you guys, kind of tell you my thought process behind some of the things that I bought. And I do think that it's good if you're wanting to garden this fall and next year to be thinking about that now. It's been an interesting thing buying seeds since COVID happened. Of course, that kind of flung a lot of the seed companies into a place of business that they'd never been before and put a ton of stress on their infrastructure, demanding just levels of supply that just didn't exist. And I think that they've handled it very gracefully, but I think as consumers and as people who need things, it's good to just keep in mind, like, hey, they're all going on sale right now. You know, don't risk there being a supply and demand issue in the spring. You could go ahead and get your stuff now. Another thing, and I'm going to be talking about this as my garden comes in, I think it's a really important year to save seeds. You're about to have tomatoes and peppers coming in, and even if you didn't do anything to keep from cross-pollination happening, they might grow a mix. You know, they might grow a hybrid. You might not get what it is that you're hoping to get if you planted everything really close together and didn't protect your blossoms at all, but you'll still get food. So having saved seeds, even if they're imperfectly saved, I think that's a good habit to just be in, because it's awesome to be able to catch a good deal and get lots of seeds like this. It's also really cool when you start gardening just how fast seeds multiply, and then you can be the person that has extra to share, which is also always awesome to get to be that. So, thank you guys for hanging out with me today. This has been on my table for 3 days, and I waited until I could shoot a video, and so I waited for you. I wanted to tear into it and like lay in bed and open all my seeds and read all the packages when it first came, but I decided I would share the moment with you. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I bless you. Until next time.